Hey guys, we're back with another episode of Designing Digital Excellence. This is Vasily Lambos, and today we've got a really awesome special guest. We met on Clubhouse, and then subsequently through Bob Lanham, he's like, "Hey, you got to meet this guy." And I had no idea who he was, and he was like, "Carson Henry, and you are the best person to meet." I'm like, "Why?" Turns out we both worked at Hendrick Automotive, and it just became a great introduction. And now we're going to talk about digital excellence from the eyes of three core topics: the consumer. So, how does advertising experience align with the eyes of the consumer? We're going to talk about marketing objectives, aligning those objectives with your consumer intent. And then fundamentally, how to align and create excellence on your digital landscape for the showroom experience and translating the showroom experience to digital marketing. So before I jump in, I'd love to introduce Carson. Thank you for joining today, man. And I feel like we're family. We're on Clubhouse almost every other day together.
Yeah, it's I've spent way too much time on Clubhouse. But it's been great, man, and I'm definitely grateful, for our relationship and friendship. It definitely feels like we've known each other a lot longer than in the past couple of months. But it's been really cool, man. Yeah, I'm grateful for it as well. I'm excited to get started.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's wild, man. I think Clubhouse has taken the automotive industry and just put us all in the same room, and we're having just such powerful conversations. And I know between you and I talking about some of the work that we do, we work heavily in the paid media space. We work on advertising tech. We know the pain points in the industry, and it's like, which problem do you solve first? So I'd love to get your feedback and dive in on the insights and your perspective on this, because you deal a lot with aligning the advertising experience in the eyes of the consumer. And just tell me a little bit about what that perspective is to you and what you see in the market today.
Yeah, I think oftentimes, when we talk about marketing strategies, targeting strategies, whether it be paid or any other channel, we're always using our sales objectives to dictate, how we target or even determine those budgets and which media we're pushing. And I think that that's a counterintuitive thought. Naturally we want to drive sales, and that's the point of any advertising or marketing. But, I like to look at it from, how do we align our marketing initiatives with what our consumers want to accomplish based on, what stage of the funnel they're in or what they may be experiencing in their life at that time. And so I think it's a really interesting thought. And I think, specific to, like, if you look at display, display engagement rates are super low, and a lot of people shy away from display. It's just not effective. It's not effective. But um, it's almost like we've conditioned consumers to not pay attention to those banners because oftentimes it's super irrelevant to anything that they're feeling at that time. Like, it's not relevant to the site that they're on. It's not relevant to their mood even. So it's like, um, to give like a specific example, if you have um well, I mean, look at like inventory campaigns, right? Like a couple data points that we have is, okay, we know this person's raised their hand. Great. Okay, that doesn't really help us a whole lot. And then maybe we know what car they currently drive. And then we say, well, let's serve like inventory to that car. Well, it's like, okay, you might hit what, 20% of of people are gonna relate to that advertisement or that least special or whatever you're pushing. So I think it's an interesting thought to, like, let's dive a little deeper, see if we can aggregate some contextual data around that consumer before we serve an ad. Because what I always say in this scenario is you'd never do that in the showroom, right? You'd never have somebody walk in your store, see that they pull up in a Civic Coupe, and just pull up the next Civic Coupe without talking to
Absolutely.
them. It's like, so why would we do that online?
Yeah, I totally agree. And when I think about the media mix modeling that dealerships are under leveraging their ability to think about that framework, which is essentially looking at how you're merchandising, looking at how you're operationalizing your media budget in a way that better captures the pie, right? It better captures that target audience. And I think there's a level of granularity that I love. And I think we get along so well here on aligning those goals and getting granular with your approach is going to be a huge kind of value add. Another thing that I thought um, that you mentioned that was really interesting is this idea of balancing the experience in the dealership with your advertising dollars. And when I think about that, I really think about brand promise. And I'm like beating a dead horse because on Clubhouse, you hear me talk about brand messaging, brand promise. And dealers today are looking to, I think, better position or differentiate themselves from the OEM brand, even if they are a franchise dealer. What would you give some recommendations for in better aligning things like brand messaging and brand promise online?
Yeah, great question. And I feel very strongly about this. I think it's super simple, right? Like in your let's stick with paid media, like a common thing is lease incentives or inventory. And it's like, okay, you're pushing things that everybody has. You're not differentiating in these campaigns. So we talk about it all the time, and I think everybody agrees that, yeah, my store is different. We have a great experience, and we talk about it maybe through social channels. But why wouldn't we put some dollars behind that and push it out in front of some people in the form of, let's say you get a fantastic review, right? That a lot of people can relate to, that tells a great story about how you solved the problem for a particular consumer. Template that, man. Put that in a display ad or OTT, like make a video around it and put some dollars behind that. And you should see engagement start to increase a little bit. I think that's an interesting thought. There's infinite ways that we can do this, but I think that's going to resonate with consumers a lot more than a car with a 299 lease, no money down. I mean, they're just fatigued with that messaging.
I 100% agree with that. And it's I always ask the question to everybody in the automotive space because I think it's such a you talk about the multiple avenues you can go down to doing that, and even translating the offline and online in a way that has that consistency. And when you talk to a dealership about brand consistency, it's like this convoluted conversation. It becomes this weird paradigm between OEM and tier three. And how do you better package your value proposition at the local level? And we all look to Carvana and we're like, oh, 7-day test own. It's easy, it's simple, it's done, one and done, full funnel experience end to end. But the reality is we can't do that across the entire market. We are not set up yet to do that successfully. Are there amazing companies out there that are going to do it? Absolutely. But are we actually going to be able to operationalize that quickly in the near term? Maybe not. And I think that that's something that, I'd love to talk to you about because it brings us to our next topic, which is really marketing objectives and aligning those objectives, right, with consumers in mind. And how do we best create a best practice or design, what digital excellence looks like, right? What is the best format or methodology to do that today? And I'd love to hear your insight there.
Yeah, I think, well, just to touch on that Carvana piece, real quick and talking about what's in place and whether we can offer it or not, I would venture to say Carvana is not offering what they're claiming it, right? And they're doing kind of exactly what we talked about doing is they're putting dollars behind that brand and they're putting that message out there. You're not seeing Carvana inventory ads on pre-roll or, you know, commercials on TV. They're talking about the experience. Dealers can do the exact same thing. But yeah, to align with the customer objective, I think it's, you know, we both came from a great group, and one thing they always taught was, align with the speed of your customer, right? And that means meet them where they are, and you kind of allow them to dictate, how they navigate that sales process. in a way that's comforting to them. You build trust that way, you build transparency, and you build a deeper relationship. And I think a lot of um, tier three operators do a great job of doing that and training that, right? But then when they go to advertise, it's not consistent with that process. It almost sends the exact opposite message. Everything is super low funnel. Um, Come in this weekend, blowout sale, clearance. Bob Lana made a couple posts talking about why people visit a dealership's Facebook page, and what does that send? What message does that send to visitors of your Facebook page if all they see are these sales incentives and inventory? And the perception is when they visit your store, they're going to be bombarded
Absolutely.
with high pressure sales. And so I would venture to say, agree with Bob wholeheartedly. Your Facebook page should be, but your entire all your marketing efforts should be that way, right? There's a time and a place for that low funnel message, but I think it's like 10 to 20% of the time. It's not this 100%. We want those low funnel customers, but you got to put the time and effort in to obtaining and getting in to that low funnel stage before you can just pound them with that message. Um, so when people talk about, click through rates of display and things like that, I think it's not the advertising medium that's the issue. It's the messaging and the targeting that's the problem, because we're not taking the time to align with the customer's speed. We haven't earned the right to show them that least incentive and ask for that conversion.
You nailed it. You nailed it. And I think about the amount of times where we see lack of differentiation. We keep pushing price as price is, supposed to be, and in some cases, price could actually deteriorate a dealer's brand, can deteriorate gross. And when we think about ROI and we're trying to drive incremental growth from a marketing perspective, if you know your media strategy has multiple levers that need to be pulled, whether that's in Google or in Facebook, if you're not looking at it holistically, you can easily, deteriorate the funnel and push the wrong message to the consumer. And so I think when we talk about advertising, we talk about designing the best plan or the best media plan, the best execution for that. The more granularity you have, the better in your strategy. The more in the weeds in the data, are going to be beneficial for your execution. So when I think about that, a common pain point that comes up is that the audience, and this is more on the vendor side, but the audience being the GM or the stakeholder at the dealership who's managing this, right? What level of education do you think they need in order to be successful in this space?
That's a tricky question. I think the answer is I don't think they need um, to be you know super fluent in how to navigate these dashboards and dive through the metrics. What they need to understand is um, how they want their customer to view their business, right? And then let that determine which KPIs we look at. So if I can articulate to you, Vasilios, in layman's terms, how I want my customer to view my operation and my business, and how I want to be presented in my community, you and Lambos Digital can go in and say, okay, these KPIs are important, right? And they have to have access to somebody who can do these things. But I think that's not the issue. I think the issue is just, they say, let's say they hire Lambos Digital and they say, sell me more cars. And okay, well, if you want a shot in the arm and a 30-day return, yeah, we're going to have to focus on these super low funnel customers, and the messaging has to be super low funnel, because now from a partner perspective, I've got to provide that shot in the arm. He's expecting a return in 30 days. Well, what we're talking about is not going to be a shot in the arm. This is a much deeper and a much stronger relationship that we're trying to build, even from a paid perspective. So I guess to go back to your point, I don't think, the GM or the operator has to be able to dive in and do all these things themselves. That can help, but what's the reality of that? Uh, you know, Virtually zero. There's you could count on like two hands, maybe in the country, how many can. They just don't have the time or the ability. So I think they have to be able to articulate how they want to be presented to consumers from a paid perspective, and have a good partner that can do this for them on their behalf, whether that's an internal representative or not. I think that's the necessity there.
Yeah, that's a great point, and you're nailing it. I feel like when I think about the balance between onboarding a dealership to speak the same language, it sometimes is difficult, right? Because there's so much data, there's so many channels that we play in as a dealer when we're marketing our inventory and we're marketing our brand. And so I think in a simple fashion, right, the solution is definitely a hybrid of balancing your experience, balancing inventory, and marketing your inventory, making it more mid funnel as a strategy, and upper funnel brand awareness, right? And so I think a lot of, and that's I think part of the reason why we get confused as a dealer is because we're not being deliberate in how we look at our strategy holistically. We dive straight in for that
100%.
bottom funnel. So we know that sales are the objective. Even as a marketer or an agency, you know that your objective is to drive ROI, return on ad spend, and sales. But when you're looking at it from a holistic approach, to get there effectively takes hitting all of those tiers of the funnel from
Yeah.
top to bottom.
Well, take a look at like the group we came from, right? They put a lot of time and resources into generating reviews, which is a great strategy. And I mean, it's not, it's, whether it's incorporating things into the comp plan to incentivize your salespeople to get those reviews, it costs money and it costs time and it costs resources. That's not going to be a 30-day uh, return on a financial statement. So the mentality is correct, right? We just need to apply it in digital marketing, just like we do everywhere else. And I think that's the piece that's being missed. So I don't think there's like a technical component that operators are missing or lacking. Even I don't even think it's an education piece. It's just, hey, let's just do what you're doing in this space too. And not only that, all these reviews, that's all content now. Like that's a whole nother conversation, is where's all this content come from? You got the content in the reviews. Let's throw them on templates. You're paying, I don't want to, you're not paying for reviews, but in the form of time and resources, it's costing your business to generate these reviews. Let's get a return on them exponentially. So I think it's just a mindset, to take something that I think a lot of stores subscribe to, but they just don't see where it can be applied in a digital marketing strategy. And I think maybe there is an education component now that I'm talking about it, in that, hey, digital marketing is not all digital marketing is the same. It's not a one size fits all, right? A display ad is not a display ad is a display ad. There's all
Yeah.
kinds of ways that you can come in and break that down. And so maybe just opening minds to see how customized and how uh one to one you can make that to your specific rooftop might be an education piece. But yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And so I think about, like for our audience, whoever's watching this is going to think about, from each channel. Like I always think every channel has you know, its own metrics and its own kind of lane that you can operationalize and operate in. And so when I think about media holistically, when you're planning from a holistic budget perspective, you're thinking to drive, you have core KPIs aligned, you have your hard conversions, which we're very concerned about as an industry. We are still optimizing for leads, we're optimizing for messages, and that's okay. You can still do that. I've seen very effective dealerships operate for their main focus is getting leads, and you can do that and still drive offline sales and drive offline conversions. We've been doing it for many, many years. And so I think there's been this pressure, this like overarching pressure to take more of like an e-commerce SaaS, media approach. And we're looking at these funnels and we're saying that a dealership, a tier 3 location, a retail location rather, could fit that model. And that's just not the case. And that's okay. And I think it's more or less, what can we solve? And I think you mentioned it, right? We spoke about, the investments that our prior organization that we've worked at was investing in reputation management. Reputation management was a long game. And when we think about long versus short game, we're conditioned as dealers to think short term. New car objectives, month-to-month planning, month-to-month budget, month-to-month co-op. And if we just take a step back to measure on an annualized basis things like our media plan, right? And when we think about seasonality, that's a huge area of opportunity. And so when I think about seasonality, man, I think, Carson, I think about like the many weekends that we have throughout the year. Like we have like 12, 11, 10 Super Bowl weekends we have for a dealership throughout the year that we want to really operationalize against. And we're pushing creative that may be, price oriented, it may be sale related, and that's okay too. But on the long term, when you're looking at the plan holistically, what's the message and value proposition you're bringing to market? And is it lined up with that consumer intent? And I think you have great input there.
Yeah. And do you want to rely on those weekends?
No.
Like if
right?
because like so oftentimes it's like we're building up to this and you're like, if you don't hit that number on that weekend, now what?
Exactly.
So the other thing here too, I think is interesting is like when you're talking about optimization is like if you take let's just look at Facebook, right? Everything there is optimized for engagement. Like how do they keep people coming back? A dealership should have that same mindset. Like, how do I keep people coming back to my site? How do I keep people coming back to my store? I don't care if they're buying. I just need them coming back because when they do buy, it's going to be for me. Now, I don't have to guess or spend money on data to find out if they are in the market because I know that they're coming to me. So like, how do I make my digital experience, whether that be social, paid, or site, how do I optimize all those things for just engagement? Like, how do I get them clicking? And like, a shout out to Gray, who's been in a lot of these clubhouse rooms. He said something the other day that was like, dude, that is awesome. When he's like, dude, we make memes. We make memes. And sometimes we'll put those in display ads. And like, I'm thinking about like, I love that. I love that because, well, obviously people love memes. They're funny. But all you want from that consumer is an engagement. And if you continue pushing traffic, whether that's physical, digital, you're going to convert even in that shorter window, more often than not. But yeah, I think that like when you're talking about that optimization, right? Like let's optimize, just let's break it down. And then, I've learned so much from Clubhouse. Ben Hadley talks about it all the time. What's your gosh, I can't remember the word. Like the atomic what does he say?
Ben's going to kill you that you don't remember this.
It's the atomic unit. What's your atomic unit? And he says, for Facebook was the like. That's what they want. On an atomic scale, they want the like. Then you could say, okay, any decision we make as a company, does it get us more likes? Right? I think a dealership should be the same. Like the atomic unit, I don't think should be delivering a vehicle. It should be something prior to that may or may not result in delivering a vehicle. But if I increase my atomic units, whether that just be like visits, I just want people coming in, just walking in. Obviously, I'm going to deliver more units. You know what I mean? But if we focus on that atomic unit, find out what it is, and it could be different for any store. But I thought that was really interesting as well.
Yeah. And I think there's one point, I know we're going to wrap up shortly, but there's to that point when we think about auction dynamics by platform, and this is highly technical, right? In many areas. But I talked to Bob about this, and I think there's advertisers and dealerships. Advertisers are true offenders of running campaigns that are inefficient because they're optimizing the wrong way. They're lining up with the wrong objectives. And when you think about that, you need to take a step back. And there are resources today that'll literally define who wins in auction for a platform like Facebook. And so the actual equation is the advertiser's bid multiplied by the estimated action rates plus user value equals the total value. And so when you think about that, it's the algorithm is estimating what the action rate is going to be for the objective that you're optimized for, right? It's the algorithm is going to optimize for the objective, the campaign objective you set.
Yeah. Because they want
And
engagement.
exactly.
Yeah.
But we don't think about it. I think we operationalize the business on the opposite of that. And we ask ourselves why we're spending money inefficiently on these campaigns.
And it kills your campaign is what it does. It makes it exponentially more expensive. Yeah, it's a very interesting point. Very interesting point.
Sweet. Well, I'm going to wrap up today. And before we wrap up, as always, I'd love to get your information, Carson, to the audience for if they're looking to reach out and learn more within the space. I really appreciate it. Again, you on the show today. Where can they go to reach out to you? Is it a website, LinkedIn?
Yeah, hit me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Carson Henry. I think my Instagram's RABIT Carson. There's going to be a RABIT site incoming, with some, we're in beta right now, so can't talk a whole lot about it, but it's right in line with a lot of what we've talked about today, where we're optimizing for things that you're not used to in automotive. So what that means is, we're super selective in the partners that we work with, and it's not for everybody, and we understand that. But I think it's going to be a disruptor. So look for a site on that soon. I don't have it yet. It's going to be rabitauto.com. If you go there now, it's just going to ask you for a password, and I'm not going to give that out just yet. But yeah, Instagram, LinkedIn, Clubhouse, obviously, love to engage with as many people as possible on Clubhouse. This has been fun, man. I really appreciate it.
No, likewise. And as always, maybe we'll get an episode on launching that baby in the future. I know RABIT is an exciting project you've been working on, and just given the stuff we spoke about today, I'm super hyped to hear what it's all about. But thank you again. This is Designing Digital Excellence with Vasily Lambos, and we'll see you on our next episode.
Thanks, Vasily. See ya.